A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to your English 2 class. Today we will read After Blenheim by Robert Southey. After Blenheim by Robert Southey is an anti-war poem that centers around one of the major battles. Here we will talk about one of the major battles of 18th century, and here we will talk about the Battle of Blenheim. Written in the year 1796 in the form of a ballad, this offers a deep insight about war and its consequences on the common people. The 1704 War of Spanish Succession, in which the coalition forces including the English defeated the Franco-Barbarian army on the land of Blenheim, a small village in southern Germany, supplies the main ingredients of the poem. So we can understand, here we will get to know about the famous battle, the Battle of Blenheim that took place in the year 1796. The poem was written in the year 1796 that took place in the year 1704. And here we will see further that the English will take a victory against the barbarian French army. Okay, so let us discuss the poem. But before we discuss the poem, we need to know about the poet. Robert Southey was an English romantic poet. He was the poet laureate of his time. He wrote this poem in the year, as I told you, 1796, about a battle that took place in Blenheim, a village in southern Germany, in the year 1704. It is an anti-war poem that sharply criticizes the destruction and death caused by war. The poet uses simple narrative of a grandfather explaining the story of the battlefield to his grandchildren. One is Peterkin, another is Wilhelmine. So the children we will see here, the children will be suffering from their own query. Out of innocence, they will ask a few questions regarding war, about which the grandfather Caspar will not have any answer. The grandfather will not be able to give a good reason that will satisfy the cause of the war. And obviously this was the propaganda that is introduced in the common people. So the poet wants to emphasize through the repetition of the lines are senseless, the senseless, futile and evil that can be caused through war. This is a powerful poem that echoes Wilfred Owen's famous quote, "The pity of war." This poem is a wake-up call to seek peaceful solutions of all the conflicts. Now, we will read the poem and I will try to decipher the meaning. After Blenheim by Robert Southey. It was a summer evening. Old Caspar's work was done. So, it was a summer evening. Here we will see, we are actually, this first stanza sets the tone and the atmosphere of the narration and reflections. So we will see here, it was a summer evening. Old Caspar's work was done, and he before his cottage door was sitting in the sun, and by him spotted on the green his little grandchild Wilhelmine. So old Caspar, after having done his work, he was sitting under the setting sun and he was witnessing his grandchild Wilhelmine playing on the green in front of him. She was her brother Peterkin. She saw her brother Peterkin roll something large and round. So what does she see there? She actually saw her brother named Peterkin was rolling something that was large and round, which he beside the rivulet in the playing there had found. What that thing that he was rolling? he found that beside the stream. Okay. He came to ask what he had found. That was so large and smooth and round. So he came to ask his grandfather what was that he found, and it was large, smooth and round. So we all are curious, what does Peterkin actually find there? Let us know. Old Casper took it from the boy, who stood expectant by. So, old Casper just snatched it from the boy, who stood expectant by. Means he was expecting a reply of his query. And then the old man shook his head, and with a natural sigh. Okay. It is some poor fellow's skull, said he, who fell in the great victory. So after taking that from his grandchild's hand, he stated to him it was the skull of a poor fellow who was actually fighting in the battlefield and who got died, and he was somehow buried here, and it was none other than his skull. But whenever he was saying all this explanations, he seems to be very natural, and with a natural shy he goes on saying this. Means try to understand, if someone is died, if someone is buried there in the garden, and while plowing the skull is discovered, this is something to be worried about, isn't it? So this is not not a very familiar affair of ours. We haven't seen this skull and all on a everyday basis. But here, when Peterkin asked, old Casper said with a natural shy, it was the skull of a poor fellow battling in the field. But the last thing, here you will please note this, who fell in the great victory. So while talking about the war, the phrase came in his mind, that is great victory. So he is not concentrating about war. Rather, he is fascinated with the idea that all the battles are associated with a glorious victory. So he said this. Throughout the poem, you will get this ironic tone, because as I said, this is an anti-war poem, and you will find in all the stanzas of this poem that are repleted with this ironic sense, because a war can cause nothing but death and destruction and annihilation. But the grandfather will be always mentioning about the great victory that is caused at the end of the war. He will not talk about the destruction, the lives it has taken, the annihilation it has caused, but he will talk about the great victory that one of the teams has got at the end. I find them in the garden, for there's many hereabout. And often when I go to plough, the ploughshare turns them round. Okay, so I find them in the garden. Try to understand what he is saying here. Here in this fourth stanza, he continued saying that he found such skulls all over the farm while ploughing. And often I go to plough, the ploughshare turns them out. Means because many thousand men are killed in the battle, and the battle that is famous for its great victory. Okay, for many thousand men, said he, were slain in the great victory. So he continued saying that it is very often to him, while going for ploughing the field, he often found such skulls, because thousands of men are actually slaughtered in the battle, and they all are buried there. So this is quite a natural affair for him to find them. So, and he's talking about the war that is associated to great victory. Yes, we can understand. Now tell us what it was all about. Young Peterkin, he cries. Now young Peterkin asked his grandfather to tell him what the war was about. And little Wilhelmine looks up with wonder-waiting eyes. Now it is, we can see here, it is nothing but their innocence that is compelling them to ask or query out of curiosity. Okay, because this is the quality which we all have when we are infant, when we are in that stage of utmost innocence. But this goes away with the time when we grows up. Okay, now Peterkin and Wilhelmine, they were very much innocent, and out of curiosity they started asking questions. Now what the war was about, and their eyes were wonder waiting, means they all were standing in anticipation. They all were waiting for any satisfying answer to come on the part of their grandfather. Now tell us, what about the war? What they fought each other for? Now through the mouthpiece of these two little children, the poet is putting the question, what is the purpose of war? Yes, we understand that it causes a great victory. It is very glorious and it is associated to the romantic ideas. Okay, everything is understood. But can you just say, what was the purpose of having such a war which causes such skulls to be buried here and there in the field? Okay, so this is here we can find the tone of an anti-war poem, and in an ironical tone this has been asked by the children to their grandfather. Now, it was the English, Casper cried. This is Casper's answer. Who put the French to rout? Means the British defeated the Franco-Barbarian army here in the Battle of Blenheim. But what they fought each other for, I could not well make out. Now see, this is the casualty of the common ignorant people who actually lack the the real idea, the real wisdom that is associated to war. What does it cause? It causes nothing but destruction and death. Okay, so we, like the common people here, the grandfather is a representative. He is saying that why the war was held, that is unknown to us, and I cannot tell you, I cannot give you a satisfying answer regarding this, but I can say only one thing: it causes a great victory. Understood? So we can see here how much callous attitude he has been posing here. This is the attitude of the common ignorant people. Okay, he is being one of the representatives of that. We do not brood over the the annihilation part of a war. Rather, we think about the victory, the medals, who won, who lost, about all this rubbish stuff. But actually, our motive should be to think about what does it cause. Okay, so we all are not need of this. Rather, we want nothing but peace. Peace should prevail everywhere. We don't need war. But everybody said, quoth he, it was a famous victory. Yes, everybody who, like all the people, we often talk, whenever we are talking about a war, we are already concerned with the victory. Okay, who won the match, who won the battle like that. But whatever that took at the expense of being a winner, or at the expense of what to say, win the battle, what does that cause? We hardly pay attention to that. So he said, as everybody says, it was a great victory. So Wilhelmine and Peterkin, they did not get the satisfying answer here. My father lived in Blenheim then. Yon little stream hard by. Now, at this juncture of the poem, the poet is clinging to his past. He's talking about his past. So, yon means what? Beyond. Beyond little stream. So, my father lived at Blenheim then. Whose father? The old Casper's father lived in Blenheim then. Yon, beyond little stream hard by. They burned his dwelling to the ground, and he was forced to fly. Who that they? Due to the battle that took place in Blenheim. Okay, so it caused the burn of their houses at the end. Their houses were burned, and they were compelled to flee from that place. So with his wife and child he fled, nor had he where to rest his head. He fled with his wife and child, and he had no place to rest his head. Means he had no shelter to live. So try to grasp the idea that the poet wants to convey here, that this happened to Casper's father as well, and he got to know how horrible the picture was when his father was also a prey or a subject of such a such a created situation by the warmongers. Okay, but he is also telling us that he had no place to be there. He has no shelter to stay along with his child and his wife. Then, with fire and showed the country round, was wasted far and wide. Now the poet here describes the severity of the battle. With fire and showed means here we can understand how men are cruel to other men. With the showed and fire, all these are destructive objects, and one man is using against another man in order to have victory. Isn't it ironical? And many a childing mother then and newborn baby died. So here that we can understand a catastrophic situation here. So not the mother, but the mother, child, and the childing mother also, the pregnant women also died. But things like that, must be at every famous victory. Now we can see here, Casper is, designed with the fact of inevitability of death. So according to him, death is inevitable. Okay, so it will cause at the end, and it is very normal and natural to him. So it took. Okay, it's okay that it actually took a number of lives, but death is something inevitable. We cannot deny this. We cannot escape. So this happened, but at this expense, we got the famous victory. They say it was a shocking sight. After the field was won, for many thousand bodies here lay rotting in the sun. See, now we can understand by these words, shocking and rotting, we can understand how the situation was horrible, and it was quite a terrible sight to witness. Okay, so this the sight was very much shocking. And after the field was owned, yes, even if the field was owned by one of the groups, the sight was really shocking. For many thousand bodies, not 1, 2,000 bodies, here lay rotting in the sun. They were just laying here and there, and they lay rotting under the sun. Try to just think or try to imagine the sense the war actually portrays. Okay, try to grab how much destructive elements it has. But things that like that must be after a famous victory. Again, here we can see greater resonance to the horrendous images of death has been used by the poet here. And again he is saying towards the end, all this should be like this, because at the end we got the great victory. The ironical repetition to symbolize the futility of war. War is nothing but a futile affair and to be avoided at any cost. This is the message which has been portrayed very nicely in an ironical manner. Great praise the Duke of Marlborough own, and our good Prince Eugene. So who was the Duke of Marlborough here? He was an English general, commander of British force in the War of Spanish Succession. And the good prince, he was an Australian general, and in France with Marlborough he defeated the French people in Blenheim. So this Duke of Marlborough and the prince and good Prince Eugene, they too set the barbarian French army to the rout, and they defeated them. Why it was a very wicked thing, said little Wilhelmine. I mean, why this happened there? It was the first and foremost question which has not been answered by Wilhelmine's grandfather yet. I mean, why? This is a wicked thing. His innocence allows him to portray the actual effect of a war. That is, it is such a wicked thing, and towards the end we got nothing but the destruction of such lives. So why this happened? Why are you talking about the general who fought against whom and who won the battle? It was quite glorious. She cannot understand why her grandfather is clinging to all such explanations without without satisfying her with a query that is put to ask to her grandfather. Nay, nay, my little girl, quoth he, it was a famous victory. No, what are you saying? It was not at all a wicked thing. We got a famous victory. The English people got a famous victory. And if anyone wins, someone has to lose, right? So this is quite natural. And everybody praised the Duke who this great fight did win. So now he is saying that everybody was praising the Duke, due to whom we all got the famous victory. But what good came off at last, quoth little Peterkin. Now little Peterkin is curious. Yes, we can understand this happened and everyone praised Duke for his valor and heroic deeds. But I am not satisfied yet, grandfather. Why this took place there? What was the cause? What was its purpose? Why, that I cannot tell, said he. But it was a famous victory. Now, victory has many father, but defeat is an orphan. He, throughout throughout this poem, these words are very much distinct by the words of the grandfather, old Caspar. Okay, you can cause someone's victory, you can cause someone's defeat, but what it takes towards the end, many lives that you cannot deny, the distraction we cannot escape from, the such a horrified and terrible sight that the people who were there in the battlefield witnessed cannot be fetched by common people. So stop romanticizing the ideas associated to war. Start thinking from your from the from the very core of your heart. Like, was it really needed? What was the cause? What was the purpose? It causes the pregnant mother, many child, many women, and many helpless men's destruction. So we should not looking forward to have such a winning experience. We do not want at the expense of this victory. We don't want. Rather, we want peace. And this is very evident in an ironical manner. It is nicely portrayed. The theme, man's cruelty to man. Yes, the poem is a scathing commentary on man's cruelty to man. What is seen in the poem, we can see here, it represents the old state of human behavior. The skull Peterkin found, as well as Caspar regularly found in the field, is nothing but a mute testimony to the horrors of war. A man kills another man to achieve the great victory. Isn't it ironical? On one hand is old Caspar, whose only concern is the great victory gained at the cost of death and devastation. On the other hand, the children, whose innocence actually asking them to grasp the central idea, the central purpose of the war, not the so-called victory. The poem implies the perpetrators of war cannot or will not suppress their ambitions that provoke war. The children, who are many people uncorrupted by adult thinking, can readily perceive war that is nothing but the cause of death and destruction. Another theme is very much relevant, that is curiosity and the lack of it. The children are curious by nature. So when Peterkin finds the skull, they all were, Wilhelmine and Peterkin, both of them become very curious to ask on with their questions. So Wilhelmine asked our grandfather to explain about the war that took place there and what was its cause. Caspar is able to describe about the war that took place between both the groups, he said, but he was unable to fetch the cause of it. He has no idea about its causes. So all that matters to him was that Austria and England won a great victory against the French people. Old Caspar unquestionably accepts the loss of innocent lives in the Battle of Blenheim at the price of the glorious victory in the war. It seems that he has resigned himself to the fact that people do die and it is such an inevitable affair. Throughout the poem, he is seen repeating the phrase, "It was a great victory," and he is actually ignorant of the main causes of war. Caspar's complacency is like the modern politicians, right, who dismiss the deaths of innocent people in the war by referring to them with the impersonal phrase collateral damage, right? So yes, this tone is very much ironical, as I said. It is an anti-war poem which reflects on the horrors of war, like burnt house, civilian casualties like those of pregnant women, that newborn babies and rotting corpses. It is, however, ironical that the poem glorifies the outcome of the war in the form of a great victory of nation. So it is, we can already say this ironical masses are lured by the leaders into believing the importance of victory in the war rather its purpose or benefits for a common man. So the irony exposes to the readers that the war is nothing but a pointless and a futile affair. So here I am going to end this class. To read the poem, I will supply all the materials which are required in order to decipher the poem. Try to think what the poet wants to convey to his readers, and let me know how much you have enjoyed reading this. We'll meet in the next class. Have a great day ahead. Do reading, do attend all the classes carefully, and thank you for being so patient.